Our beginners, going back into Bible, we learned about who? We learned about the life of Jacob and his son Joseph. Now Joseph, was Jacob's favorite son, and he would give him beautiful and wonderful gifts. And after that, his brothers did what? They sold him. He went to Egypt. He was a slave for a while, and now we're going to find out what happened after that. So this is called Double Dream from Genesis 39 to 41. In Egypt, Joseph was put into prison for something he did not do. The king's cupbearer was put into prison too. Do you know what a cupbearer is? A cupbearer is someone who would probably bring the king his cup, and he would do what? He'd taste it to make sure it wasn't poisonous. He was the king's cupbearer. All right, so the king's cupbearer was in prison with Joseph. One morning, the cupbearer said, "I had a strange dream last night. What does it mean?" "God knows," said Joseph. Joseph told the cupbearer the meaning of his dream. In 3 days, the dream came true. So what? Joseph was able to tell the cupbearer's dream because God had spoke to Joseph. And what? It was true. The cupbearer was called back to work in the palace. "Remember me," said Joseph. The cupbearer forgot. Why do you think Joseph wanted the cupbearer to remember him? Probably so the cupbearer can get him out of prison. But did he remember? 2 years later, Pharaoh, the king, had a strange dream. The cupbearer remembered Joseph. "I know a man who can tell you the meaning of your dream." So what? He finally remembered. But how long later did he remember? 2 years after Joseph was in prison. So how long was Joseph in prison? For 2 or more years. That's a long time. So he had to what? He had to be patient, and he had to wait on God. Because remember providence? God, the care and protection for people? God had him there for a reason. All right? So let's see. Where was I at? The cupbearer remembered Joseph. "I know a man who can tell you the meaning of your dream," said the cupbearer. "Send for him," said the Pharaoh. Pharaoh told Joseph his dreams. He saw 7 fat cows, he said. 7 skinny cows ate them up. The 7 thin heads of grain ate up 7 full heads. All right, so he had a very strange dream. He had 7 big fat cows. What were cows good for back then and even now? To eat, all right? But what happened? There were 7 really skinny cows, and they ate the big fat cows. That was a very strange dream, if you ask me. "God gave you 2 dreams that mean the same thing," said Joseph. "There will be 7 good years with plenty of food." Plenty of food just for the Pharaoh? No, probably for the Pharaoh and all of his land. That means all of his people. 7 good years of food. "Then there will be 7 bad years with nothing. God has made you wise," said the Pharaoh. "I will put you in charge of the land." Can you believe that? So what was the Pharaoh's dream? The Pharaoh's dream came true, and it was what? There would be 7 good years of food, and then 7 what? Bad years of absolutely no food. So the Pharaoh what? He put Joseph in charge of can you imagine that? First, you're born with your brothers in a little tribe, a little village. And then can you imagine that you're being sold by your own family? And then after you're sold, you're a slave. And then after that, you work in a palace, you're thrown into jail. And after you're thrown into jail, you're made in charge of all of the land. Can you believe that? Oh wait, on this page right here. "For 7 years, Joseph saved grains in barns. Then the 7 bad years came, but there was food in Egypt because Joseph had saved up." So because the Pharaoh put Joseph in charge, the Pharaoh goes, "Joseph, I am putting you in charge of all of the land. Take care of it since you know the meaning of my dream." And so Joseph was like, okay. So since there was good food, they'd harvest the food. That means they'd bring the food and they'd eat a little bit and they'd save the rest. More food, eat a little bit, save it. For 7 years, they'd eat some and then they'd save it in what they said, big barns. So it'd be big barns full of probably grains and different types of food that they would eat back then that they were able to save. And then when the 7 years of no food came and people would go to the fields to see if they can get food and there was no food, what would they do? They would go to the barn, and because Joseph was wise, all right, and wisdom comes from who? From knowing God. He was able to give food to everybody. And so were people starving in Egypt? No, they weren't. And that is all for today. And now I kind of like this story because it kind of goes in with our geography. What did we learn in geography last week? We learned about what? We learned about how, not the shapes, but what was the title of it? We learned, I cannot think right now. What did we learn in geography? I knew I tied in with this. Oh, what is wrong with me? The shapes. I know. All right, I just remembered. In geography, we learned about what? What was the title? God's gift to man. All right, God has a gift for man, and when we were born, God gave us that gift. It was the world. All right, so what happened with Joseph? Joseph was in prison, but when he came out, he was what? He was in charge of the land. He was in charge of his gift, and he knew how to rule his gift accordingly. All right, so that just reminded me of geography, and I don't know if it reminded you of geography. I really like that story. So we will see what happens, or whose story we'll be reading in next Bible. Make sure you circle your multiletter phonograms, circle your spelling words. Great job.